new millennium. We are on air. Hello.
Can we kill that?
Say that again.
This is the Code Breakers. Sorry about the little part in the intro. We will be discussing The Empire Strikes Back, Racism, White Supremacy. This week we'll be discussing the aftermath of the United States election and also other impacts on non-whites from the system of racism and white supremacy. We will also be discussing in the aftermath, the refinement and reconstruction of the white empire, the gender disconnect, different reactions to the system between Black women and Black men, and also nuclear fallout, the reaction to the system as a force group classified as Black here and abroad. The clip we opened up with is the Empire Strikes Back soundtrack, I guess you could say. And I guess a commercial as well. Apologize about that. This is Paradox. I believe we have DC on the line as well as T. Fellas, you there?
Greetings. Can I be heard?
You can be heard.
Good. Yeah, that was the greetings. That was the Imperial March. Need to give it its rightfully its due, because if you are of a certain age or a Star Wars enthusiast, when you heard that music, you knew that someone was in trouble, because hey, either Darth Vader or the Empire slash what is the main one that was over Darth Vader, the Emperor. You knew they were somewhere close.
Emperor? Yeah, the Emperor.
Yeah, the Emperor. Palestine. He was close in proximity. Somebody was in some serious trouble. So, as of 2 weeks ago, we did do the program during the so-called election, and of course, as we are folks that are classified as Black, we are around Black people and we are related to Black people. There was a visceral reaction to Trump making the presidency, and establishing the hierarchy of white supremacy once again. So as they say, for those that didn't know, now you know. So those are my opening thoughts before we get in here and get started. But T, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think we're well on pace to cover. I mean, obviously, it's something that can be talked about ad nauseum, but nonetheless, it is important that we as victims of racism and white supremacy, especially being classified as black, discuss these issues, and perhaps we'll also get some other insights from other callers who also want to share their experiences of what they went through the day after, or the week, or even the following week after that. So look forward to it.
Right on, right on. So Paradox, do you have like the one of the clips you want to queue up, or you wanted to kind of go a little bit further in discussion about
About what?
Well, just I guess on the first part of our discussion is basically about the reaction to the election. So, I mean, if you guys want to kind of go into that, we can.
So did you T, did you want to just run all the clips back to back to back?
Yeah, I guess you can run the first clip, which is
the one with Rachel about Maddow and Trump.
The Black Power Fist, and oh yeah, well Maddow. Yeah, you can run Maddow first. That'd be great. Run that one.
Okay,
Sure.
Mr. Reed, I just sent you a clip like a few minutes ago.
Another clip?
Yes, sir. I apologize about that. Yeah.
Okay, because there's like 4 of them I just posted in the chat room. Let me see. Watch Maddow. Okay, I got it.
I just emailed you one. Can you start it? I think it runs from 18 seconds to I think 2 minutes and 13 seconds. It was kind of last minute.
I think it's very key.
To be white is to be a striver, a crusader, an explorer, and a conqueror. We build, we produce, we go upward. And we recognize the central lie of American race relations. We don't exploit other groups. We don't gain anything from their presence. They need us and not the other way around. 2 weeks ago, I might have said the election of Donald Trump would actually lessen the pressure on white Americans. But today it is clear his election is only intensifying the storm of hatred and hysteria being directed against us. As Europeans, we are uniquely at the center of history. We are, as Hegel recognized, the embodiment of world history itself. No one will honor us for losing gracefully. No one mourns the great crimes committed against us. For us, it is conquer or die. This is a unique burden for the white man, that our fate is entirely in our hands. And it is appropriate because within us, within the very blood in our veins as children of the sun, lies the potential for greatness. That is the great struggle we are called to. We were meant to overcome all of it, because that is natural and normal for us. Because for us as Europeans, it is only normal again when we are great again.
All right. That short clip was packed with a lot of information.
Was that what's the gentleman's name? Was he on TV one earlier today with Roland Martin? If I'm not mistaken, white nationalist.
Sounds
I
familiar.
don't.
Yeah, I think that's the same man. He used the same key words of trying to normalize white supremacy as some great thing, and that's part of this system. When we offer our participation into this system, and yes, ladies and gentlemen, that includes voting, working, being part of the economic capitalist structure. There are provisions to that, because what you're telling people like this person, especially with the refined language that he used, is that white supremacy works and that they are the people that knows best as far as how to live life on this planet. So, these would be the type of people that would say, if it wasn't for us, then, you wouldn't have AC, you wouldn't have automobiles, you wouldn't have skyscrapers, you wouldn't have all this industrial technology that you see out here. And what our counter need to be is, at what cost? Look at the damage that has been done to the planet that they're trying to reverse now. So much plastic that, you got so much plastic that will basically take up the most of the oceans, 3/4 of the ocean's floor. Think about how large that is when most of this planet is water. The things that's been done, the toxicity of the air, ozone days, basically temperatures rising. But, these people that classify themselves as white feel validation because people, I think he was basically reiterating the point of how great, their culture is, and celebrating their culture as something to be looked upon as the ones that have shown the light to humanity and paved the way for all these great things. But I would argue that along with some of the useful things that are done through racism, there is a cost to the humanity of the people that are participating in this system and upholding it through mass violence and deception.
Indeed. So do you think does it, in this system, racism, white supremacy, there's a lot of terms that are bandied about that people kind of fall into a cliche methodology of using this language and don't necessarily understand its root or its overarching or insidious purpose. Because, we talk about how language is used to control. So, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I could see maybe a so-called major media figure attributing this type of conversation or this type of speech that he's espousing or ideology that he's espousing to quote-unquote implicit bias. So what are your thoughts on that? I'll leave the floor for either one of you. What are your thoughts on that use of terminology as far as like an artifice to fool people into thinking and obfuscating the actual issue at hand?
Paradox, you want to take that?
Hello? Go ahead, DC.
Well, I mean, it's see, the thing is, what we're dealing with is mostly mental, right? So the generational patterns that we have fallen into it's just been devastating. Celebrating these holidays, I guess we can get to that later. Making things normal, and not calling things or the injustices that are done out here on a regular basis by their true name. So when we hear people talk, we fall into these patterns of being like, well, they're not really all that bad. They're this, they're that. But we're not being honest. So it becomes very hard to identify how the system is attacking us. And I don't really know if that is really like answering to the question your question, but I don't know, man. I feel like this type of thing continues because of just our willingness to be participants more so than anything else. Like I reiterated 2 weeks ago, a lot of this got to do with us feeling that we got to be a part of this thing, and then we rationalize our behavior around it. And as long as we keep doing that, and when I say we, I mean people forced into the classification of black, because that's what it is. I mean, we don't share the same thing. We're not a monolith group. We don't agree on a lot of different things. We have a lot of different subsections of people that are classified as black people. Whoever has the platform speaks the loudest. Normally, people that are out there in the media, some of the things that we're trying to do, we do want to be inclusive and full of ideas, but we do understand that there is no consensus of what black people think or how black people respond to the system of racism. The only consensus is that we're dominated by the group of people that classified themselves as white. Now, how we deal with that particular system, well, that is basically up to us as far as like how we react to them and how we react to the system and things of that nature.
Right. I mean, I kind of said that because this is the aftermath. I mean, as far as the terminology that we're hearing, quote unquote, people throw around the word rhetoric, and obviously, I think anyone observing what's going on is only going to ramp up and engender and stir up more confusion, especially among people classified as black. So I think it's key that over these next 4 years, okay, barring anything else that could happen, whether it be the Electoral College, which, they cast their actual votes on December 19th. And apparently there's supposedly a coup d'etat that's supposed to be going on, where some people are defecting and becoming faceless electors and will be casting votes in opposition to what the popular vote of the state has decided, or if some type of assassination attempt or something out of the normal. I think over the next 4 years we have to remain cognizant of the language that's being used and decoding that information, that language, so that we can get a clearer picture of where we stand within this system.
But y'all want to do the next clip, or you feel like you got everything out on that first clip?
Yeah. We got everything out on that one. Let's go ahead and push it along, because I'm pretty sure. Let me just. Topics we're gonna have.
Well, before we get to the next clip, let me ask you both this question. When do you have somewhat of a time frame of when indigenous people of the motherland was in conflict with what we now call the European? You have a time frame for that? Was that between on their timeline between what 14 and 1600? Was it for do we have a stretch of when we were at battle? Or was it
earlier than that?
Yeah, I was about to say, you got Middle Ages. You talking about Europeans, or you talking about when they got engaged with the people that are on the continent of what they call the landmass that they now call Africa? You talking about that?
right? Well, I want to establish a time where what we would now call them, I guess, African people or whatever, but a timeline back home where there was conflict and events taking place with what we're now calling Europeans, some conflict for a certain amount of time, and then during that time frame, the capturing and shipping of people to this side of the planet. Was there a space and time? Was it like a few hundred years, 700 years before you get to that process? Meaning that, you had, I guess you would say now Spain or Portugal, etc., starting to now come down the coast to not only fight, to barter, to trade, etc., and then at some point started to take human cargo or precious cargo and starting to feed their labor force across the pond. Is there an exact, do we have somewhat of a time frame where not necessarily it was in the process of happening yet, but people were living their lives in their kingdoms or whatever? Then you had, this group maybe been coming there forever, for all I know, for 1,000 years. But at some point where they decided to say, we're going to start, we need labor, we're doing X, Y, and Z, over here in this landmass, we need a feeder system to bring in people, human capital to exploit. Do we have a time frame when we believe that started? As far as their timeline, as far as their years and dates.
Yeah, I don't know that answer for sure. You need to research that so we can be as accurate as possible. I know there's a lot of different conflicts that took place during their conquest in and out of the continent that is now called Africa. Colonialization, like I said, became complete, somewhere around in the 50s, and then, slowly they did their damage, and then they started to retreat out of the continent, leaving some of their poisonous ways and their customs and traditions, having people, become ultra violent, start taking land. And like I said, a lot of their customs that they envelop, whether it's Rwanda, whether you're talking about the Republic of Congo, I would imagine that people that lived in this landmass already probably had conflicts or tribal conflicts or whatever you want to call it, because people are going to have conflicts. But I can imagine that they became exasperated by their contact with the European.
Do we have an idea?
Classified as white.
Do we have an idea of when the ramp up process started and you start to get a mass export of human capital?
No, I don't know that
from,
for sure.
From the at least I know from the Spanish going into Brazil, what they call Brazil now.
Don't know that. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we can touch back on that then.
What was the question? I mean, like, what was?
I just wanted to try to get a understanding or a time frame of whatever conflicts may have taken place, and then was there an export? If there was an export, around what time frame was that? What I mean by that is that was there warfare, meaning that you had what they call tribes or indigenous people at battle with the Spanish or with the Portuguese or whatever they called themselves at the time. Was there a battle that ensued for say 100 years or 200 years or whatever, and either people lost, they conceded, etc. And one of the trade-offs was the ability to be able to roam the land to export labor, to feed their sugarcane fields, etc. As they're starting to exploit and go through a mass extinction of the indigenous people on this side of the pond. And so during that process, how much warfare did we have? And then trying to link that to the establishment of what we're now calling the Americas. And during that process, what did those conflicts look like? And specifically when we get to what we're now calling the US of A, the people who were shipped here under British rule or under American rule, I guess at that point, what did that situation look like from a conflict perspective? So once you become labor, what does that mean, right? So the tidbits of information that I do have is that somebody set up a system. They're claiming it's called the transatlantic slave trade, etc. You had an influx of labor. This labor came from various groups of people, then they were brought here, used to work the land, etc. Right in that process, the human beings that were birthed from those people, what does that look like at that particular time frame, say 1619, 1650, etc. And in that process, does that mean you've been conquered? Does that mean whatever you used to be, you're no longer that? Does that mean that at that point, you are now whatever they tell you you are? And then after you deal with that for so many generations, then you become those things. And that's all you know. And that's what you are. And then you function that way. You develop your life that way. And then you start to be proud of it, accept it, fall in love with it. And from all levels, from family reunions to whatever, where you're now this thing we may call, whatever you want to call. I don't really want to put a name on it at this point, but whatever you want to call yourself, you are that now. Be you originally from this landmass or from some other landmass, to either be forced into assimilation or assimilation for benefit purposes, etc. Just what does those things feel like? What do they look like? And do people possibly ask themselves that question? Like, what really am I? Am I, just that type of thing. So I always wonder about, once a group of people come in and conquers an area, do people accept through force, through murder? Do they, and obviously when they produce children, at that point, whatever they were, does that come to an end? And then where does the ego come into play once those events happen? So we'll pretend that history never happened, and we'll pretend that we are now this, whatever you want to call that. And then the ego kicks in and says, I am that, period. I don't want to hear anything. I die for this. This is what it is. Forget about the past. Doesn't mean anything. That type of things. Not necessarily understanding that every move you make is a historical marker. It's based on something. No one moves on this planet without history. The reason why you move the way you move is because of history. And so when you move into things like World War II and you look at the consolidation of whiteness, the European model to exploit the planet, to chop the planet up, to make agreements on who's going to manage what section of the planet and what deals and negotiations that we need to make to maintain power, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll stop right there. But that was my thoughts around that. But I just wanted to get some dates and stuff around kind of the beginning of what does it look like to be conquered. And if you're not really taught, if you're never taught that, if you've never been told that you were conquered, how does the human mind from a very early age, 5, 6, 7 years old, process who and what they are, their dream state, how they see themselves in the mirror. You know, no one's walking around saying, man, you know, I'm conquered, or man, I'm oppressed, or I'm under somebody else's foot, or I'm mimicking the behavior of another group of people. Instead, you're saying, I'm doing my thing. This is who I am. I'm being myself. Contrasting what it means to be under another group, or pretending that that group doesn't have any power, and you're doing whatever you want to do, and none of the things that I just said the last 3 minutes means nothing. You know, like, it's ridiculous. It doesn't exist. That never happened. We've always been this way. There is nothing else. Those just all those conflicts, contradictions, or just things contrasting and kind of bouncing against each other is what's my thought on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you talk as far as the timeline, I'm not exactly sure, but perhaps you can go back to Alexander the Great, the so-called Great, which, if I'm not mistaken, his empire probably died out maybe 10 years before the start of the Roman Empire. So, you know, Greeks practiced slavery, and if you look at like a lot of the landmass that they conquered, they covered what people would consider today to be the Middle East, which is actually, if you look at historical maps, older maps, the Middle East is actually Africa. However, you know, with the Suez Canal, things of that nature, they kind of geoengineered and terraformed the land in order to try to present to people that it's a separate area. But Egypt was part of his territory. So, you know, that's undoubtedly Africa. So maybe that's somewhere the time frame you might be talking about, and probably even before that, because you know, wars have been going, as D alluded to, wars have been going on between tribes, whatever you want to call them, for probably age immemorial. So
yeah, but we've known from a conquering perspective that the people who are conquered, as long as they can still live their lives, they don't necessarily. I'm making assumptions here. They may not feel like they're conquered. So you take an indigenous person here and say, I'm proud to be whatever you want to call yourself, but you're under somebody else's rule, but you're never going to you may not present it that way, because maybe you are quote unquote a man and you want to present yourself a particular way to your people. And so you may not expand your statements. You may try to hold in a spot because, you know, individual people or groups of people think at different levels. Their perspectives are set up different ways, some simpler than others. So are you taking advantage of environments where you're claiming to be something, but you've been allowed to be those things? You're claiming to be something, and the group that's in charge of you allows you to express yourself, you know, and other times in history and even currently, you may not can do that in other places. So that may make you feel empowered. But, you know, people who are more aware of the environment know that there's a limit to that, know that you can only push so far, and that they don't necessarily process things in zero-sum situations, right? So you have different models, right? So some models might be direct, extreme, you can't make any movement, right? And then other models might be more open and more free, quote unquote. But so it starts to create these ideas and feelings that you're something that you might not be. Not saying you are or not, but is it a question that you should ask yourself, that is this something, if the things that I'm telling myself, the way I'm selling things to people, the ideas that I have, is it under somebody else's rule? And since I may not have the time, energy, or even care to even think about that, as long as they're giving me enough space, then I have the ability to create these ideas, these pathologies that work, right? So you can find 100 people sell them on an idea. As long as you're allowed to do that, everyone thinks that you have some sort of power and that you're able to do whatever you want to do. You can pitch that idea to so many people, be it 50 people, be it 5,000 people, or be it 100,000 people. But there always seems to be a limit as you expand, as you try to even obtain more power. You start to interact with more powerful people who truly are in charge. And it seems like the more space you get, the more the ego, the more the arrogance, the more of the I can do all these things start to come out. And I always wonder about that, because when you think about nations that get conquered, it seems that doesn't process in the individual's mind, right? So you take a nation and you say, I'm going to go to this other nation and just dominate them and topple them. And even though I may have even set that nation up, you don't know your history, so it doesn't really matter, right? You just know that I went into a place and I toppled it. Does the mind as an individual person even understand what that even means? Like, is there a physical reaction to that? And so, is even the question is an individual human being designed to be selfish enough for survival purposes at a very basic level to even not, the capacity is purposely not there to understand what it means that a group of people, go to another area of people who are minding their business and say, you know what? I don't like how you're doing things. I'll be in charge now. I'll leave you there, and it's going to look like you're really running things. And if you behave, you're good. Your people are going to think you have power. I'm going to let you do what you do as long as you do what I tell you to do, and I can exploit the environment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then if you choose not to do those things, then I'll just come and take it. And I may put somebody else who look like you in charge to continue the mindset of the masses, right? So we're talking about controlling large groups of people, right? And allowing them to have the ability, be it religious, et cetera, to still express themselves enough to where you would get compliance. And of course, in that environment of compliance, you will have what I call possibly even animals to a degree, exploiting those people, knowing that there's a bigger system at play. And they will exploit those people who are misinformed or underinformed or a little bit more simple or not that concerned about it. And you will find people taking advantage, et cetera. But I don't want to harp on that too much. But does that make any type of sense, or am I just kind of rambling?
No, absolutely. I think, and you made a lot of great points. And power is always going to be relative, and you alluded to that. And I think if we bring it to full circle to today, I mean, that's what I was talking about in terms of the use of language, when that language is forced upon the people, language, customs, things of that nature. When people talk about freedom, freedom of religion, freedom is such a abstract word because it means different things to different people. I mean, freedom to one person could be, walking down the street naked. And someone else might be highly offended by that, and to them that might not be their idea of freedom. Freedom to someone might be smoking marijuana, in the privacy of their own home or even in the streets. Someone else might find that to be disgusting or offensive or ridiculous. So when people use those type of words, I think, even like Neely Fuller alludes to when he says, what does it mean when people say hold them accountable? What does that mean? Like, you have to, I think it's imperative that, especially people classified as black, delve into the details of what that, when you say that, what does that mean? Can you go into further detail? And because one thing I want to touch on was, as far as the aftermath of the Trump election, is like his 10-point plan, right, which is supposed to be the New Deal for quote-unquote African Americans. The thing about it is, which I find kind of ironic and ridiculous, but it was released to MediaTakeout.com. That was the venue that, I don't know if him or his the cabinet he's put together thus far has selected, because MediaTakeout.com, they tout themselves as the number one news source for African Americans, which, if that's true, that says a lot about our state. But in that 10-point plan, he talks about, there's a number of things, but he talks about great education through school choice. But we all know that, and this is where I say we got to get into the details, because you say great education through school choice, but we know that the education that we're getting, and many people can attest to this at different levels of what they learn, is that it's inferior, because it's from a Eurocentric view, and so it doesn't teach knowledge itself and our particular history, which is a world history. And so, as you alluded to, Paradox, what does that do to an individual from mentally? What does that lead to in terms of their interactions with other people and how they conduct and operate amongst themselves? So, I think, again, we got to be more specific on what we're talking about and not get into cliches and catchphrases, because I think that this leads to more confusion. And so I'll let D get on it as well, because I know he hasn't spoken in a while. If he's still there.
Yeah, he there. I think he's just. Oh, here he comes.
Can you hear me? Can I be
Yeah.
heard?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, I mean, I think that that's good stuff. I mean, if you want, did you guys already play the second clip already?
No, we're gonna ask Mr. Reed to run all four in a succession. But before we do that, can you just explain your mindset behind the title, "The Empire Strikes Back"? The Empire Strikes Back, and then we can go into the clips.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why I was thinking about, a lot of people have used that phrase, especially when it comes down to someone like Trump. But one of the main reasons why I wanted to use that clip was because a lot of this is hidden. So a lot of people are very, very. Hello, can I be heard? I'm sorry, I didn't know if I went out for a minute.
Yeah, kind of broke up there for a minute.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people was very, very upset that Hillary, Secretary Clinton, did not get the election, and I don't know what kind of safety that victims of racism felt when it came down to Mrs. Clinton, or the previous regime that she was a part of with her husband. But a lot of the mass incarceration slash slavery, and Mr. Reed has dedicated his time and energy to exposing this travesty of justice that has went on for far too long now. I mean, it's like we don't believe things until white people tell us. And the gentleman that wrote "Slavery by Another Name," and then you have the new documentary that just came out, which is a light explanation on it. There should be mass protests. There should be mass striking at this system. But see, that's just part of it. The reason why I wanted to name that is because the imprint that people felt when this took place, people felt offended. People felt, incredibly disturbed mentally. And that is a good thing, because all that this did, as far as when Trump got elected to office, was basically unveil the mask that was already there. There wasn't nothing very, very surprising by it. This is something that has always been there, whether Secretary Clinton got in office or whether Donald Trump got in office. And just like anything else, to bring up a bad analogy, I would say I would rather see a pothole in front of me so I can basically choose my way to maneuver or choose a way to maneuver around it instead of falling into the pothole that I did not know was there and to total my vehicle. If you would allow me the bad analogy, but that's what I meant by The Empire Strikes Back. It's just that it awoke a lot of victims of racism or people that are classified as Black. And I don't know if it caused more confusion. If I were just basically taking a initial anecdotal poll off the contact that I have done with victims, I've said that it has been not as constructive as I would have hoped because we fall into this kind of mode of quickly blaming each other, like we have control about how white folks want to run the planet. But it's just still causing mass confusion. I mean, it's just, even if you have it in plain sight, it seems like people, in order for them to deal and go to work in the morning each day, they have to continue to lie to themselves. And that's just what I meant by The Empire Strikes Back. I hope I was clear in my explanation.
For anyone out there that wants to call in and share their thoughts or views, how do you call in? Once we call in, what do you press, *6 and 1?
The number is, they can either call 1-866-510-925. That's toll free, or they can call 704-802-5056.
It's star if they would like to comment. It'll unmute them. Just wait for the host to call out your area code or your state. Yeah, but it's let me get that out again. It is 866-510-9025. That's 866-510-9025. That's toll free, U.S. and Canada.
All right, Mr. Reed, could you just run those 4 clips for us, if you don't mind?
How do you respond to charges that your work amounts to an Uncle Tom approach?
I respond to the Uncle Tom charge, which is one I love, because now you're right in my briar patch. After the 60s, Black America turned around and began we put our fate in the hands of white America. We became dependent on white America. We said we have to have this, and we have to have that, and we have to have affirmative action. We have to have this kind of a program, and so forth and so on. All these demands that we made, and which then, of course, come out of a psychology of dependence, where I can't get ahead unless white America gives me all these things, and white America bends over backwards and uses affirmative action to get me in here and get me in there and so forth. I can't do it on my own. I can't be self-sufficient. I can't take care of myself. So militants, Black militants, are all dependent, obsessed. They're people who are obsessed with dependence, and the mask that they wear, black anger, and they wear the fist. Who's the fist pointed at? The fist is pointed at whites. The fist is that I demand something from white people. That to me is the very essence of Uncle Tomism. The fist is the Uncle Tom. All it is a militant begging. It's militant dependence. I'm the one who's saying we can do it on our own and must do it on our own, and we won't ever get anywhere until we do it on our own. I'm the ones who's saying we have the ability to do it on our own. We have the capacity to do it on our own. And that dependence is a loser's game, and anger is a waste of time. We're free. We're free as we're ever going to be. And now is our opportunity. We have to stand up like men and women and take it, regardless of what the world says, regardless of whether or not there's still racism here. I'm the militant. They're the Uncle Toms.
She's going to come. I want you to stretch your hands forward towards Donald Trump. I want Mr. Dr. Ben Carson to come, this lovely wife to come. I want the men of God here, Pastor Frank Media, Dr. J.C. Church, lay hands on him. And she's going to pray. I want you to stretch forth your hands. I really want you to intercede on his behalf. Years ago, when we first met him, he was considering running for president. There was a great preacher there. I won't say his name, but he is nationally known. And he said something to you, I don't know if you remember. He said, I want you to understand, Mr. Trump, that if you choose to run for president, there's going to be a concentrated satanic attack against you. He said, this was over 5 years ago. He said there's going to be a demon, principalities and powers are going to war against you on a level that you've never seen before. And I'm watching this every day. So we're going to pray for him.
I want to first take this opportunity to thank Cleveland, Ohio. I want to thank all of the media that came out. I want to thank all of the men and women of God that came out. I want to thank all the leaders that came out. I want to thank all of you that took time out of your day. I remember when we won the championship at Cleveland Cavaliers won, and they kept saying there's going to be mess going on, there's going to be stuff going on. Cleveland is just a different place. I'm different from my husband in so many ways, more than just gender. There's so much different. I'm very sensitive about who I meet and who I get to know. I'm just that kind of a person. Not because I'm funny, but because I'm sensitive. And when I first met Mr. Trump, he walked through the doors of Trump Towers, and I thought, oh my, that's a very tall man. And I said, as he walked in, he immediately bowed his head. And my husband will tell you and anyone, all our leadership, thank you, ministers of New Spirit Revival Center. You guys know that I pay attention to the details. I can't help it. I just walk into the room, pay attention to details. He immediately dropped his head, and he recognized that he was in the room with clergy. Mr. Trump has a reverence for clergy that I've never seen before in my 58 years to believe that the man that they show in the media is different. I'm here to tell you, this is a different man. This is a unique man. This is a leader. This is a person that will be great for our nation. This is a person that will be black Americans. This is a person that will be good for black women. All right? This is a person that will be good for our nation. And most of all, my concern, whether you know me or not, this is a person that will be good for our military. This is a person that will make our nation safe. but you should have gave me the mic. I appreciate this man. I really appreciate Michael Cohen. I appreciate him. I didn't think God could create anybody like Daryl Scott, but I promise you, Michael Cohen and Mr. Trump are like Daryl Scott. I don't know. Take the good parts. All right. I know the media went there on me. Don't go there on me. But I love this man. I thank you, sir. You didn't have to. Dr. Finch, you and your wife, you guys didn't, Dr. Carson, you all girls, all you didn't have to, Dr. Church, you all did not have to make this sacrifice to come front and center of leadership. It is a difficult place. How many pastors are here today? How many of you know leadership is difficult? And so we need someone that is honored, that will honor our beliefs and our faith and our feelings. And I really know for a fact that Mr. Donald J. Trump will do that. He's a family man. He's a businessman. He's got tremendous stamina. I don't know anybody that can get him on a plane and do all this stuff. He has 3 more meetings today. I appreciate this man. One more time, thank him for coming to the meeting. That you raise up a man for such a time as this. God, we ask you right now that your choice is this choice. We believe, Lord God, that you ordain things. You said all authority is of you. Now, God, I ask that you would touch this man, Donald J. Trump. Give him the anointing to lead this nation. We thank you, God, that as a room full of clergy, a room full of leaders, a room full of business owners, mothers, wives, husbands,
Mr. Reed, are you there?
we ask for help.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Did you not want me to continue with the clips?
No, that clip was something. I don't know what was going on with that clip. That was not T, did that sound right to you?
The audio was no better. It just didn't come through very well. But probably could have done a better choice of maybe another clip. But that's cool. We can keep it moving.
Can you touch on what that clip was about?
You still have one more.
What it was is, I'm sorry.
Still have one more.
Oh, okay. Let's play the last one. Hopefully it comes in clear. Then I'll let you touch on that one.
Hillary Clinton, I'm still trying to decide if I'm gonna vote for her.
Don't trust her.
She's great. Help her. Should not be president. Her values are just all over the place.
Not sure if to trust her.
Untruthful. She feels like a lie, I guess, to me.
She's very caring when it comes to women and very supportive.
I think she's okay. She's just an aggressive lady, self-composed.
Lord.
A trailblazer.
Successful.
Fake.
Don't know much about her, but she seems like a strong woman for everything that she's put through and called and doing.
I don't know too much about her, I won't lie, but everything that I know about her and I've seen from her, I like her.
Okay, I think that's it.
Indeed. So that clip that was kind of difficult to hear. Basically, it was Trump visited a quote-unquote black church in Cleveland prior to him becoming president-elect. He brought Mike Pence with him as running mate, as well as Don King and Ben Carson. And there was a lot said there. It was kind of a lengthy clip, but it was very interesting to see how it turned into a prayer session. Now, a lot of what was being said also by the wife of the pastor, who was also classified as black, was centered around, convincing their clergy that they should support Donald Trump. And toward the end, it turned into a prayer session, and also Don King being there was interesting as well, because he's mostly known for promoting So it was just, I think there was a lot of confusion going on there in terms of how people were receiving the message that were in the church. And then also, if you look at the comments on that particular clip on YouTube, you can type in church praise for Obama. You also see confusion there as well. So that's what that clip was touching on. The second one was touching on one of the topics that we wanted to cover, which was the gender divide, in terms of there's a lot of contention between victims, actually, victims, male and female, who are both classified as black. And the contention was over the fact that, and I'm not sure what the percentages are, someone may be better, more knowledgeable on that than me, as far as how many so-called black men voted or did not vote in this particular election. But I think DC, he kind of alluded to that as well from the conversations last show that he had with so-called black women, and the contentions and frustrations that were directed toward him, leading to victim shaming.
Yeah, I mean, can I be heard?
It's all yours.
Yeah. So let me just get something clearly out the way, so it can be understood, and it shouldn't be any clearer than what our dedication is to the so-called Democratic Party. And the only reason why black people vote Democratic is because the Republican Party flipped during the Lyndon Johnson era, when they still called white supremacists Dixiecrats. It was a clearly Southern party, but when they flipped, they became Republican during that year of Lyndon. Anyway, there was, if I'm not mistaken, it's roughly the largest demographic that voted for Hillary Clinton, regardless, percentage-wise of the people that did vote, was black women, clearly, and that was upwards of 93 to some places have it as low as 93, but I think it's between 93 and 96%. I think I'm fairly accurate on that. And the second demographic that voted for Hillary Clinton is black males. And we range from, the numbers range from 85 to 88%. And, it's just amazing that you hear victims, both sides of the gender divide, that would say things like, well, it's black males' fault, or it's black women's fault. Why are you in line with Hillary, or why are you voting for Trump? I think that when you're dealing online and you're dealing with victims of racism, normally the people that are considered contrarians, that say things that are totally opposite of the few of us that do tend to agree sometimes. And it seems like our voting block, if we can get this much agreement on racism, white supremacy, we may finally get some leeway into solving this problem of racism. If we could get clarity on that, if we can get 90% to 80-some%, hell, 70% of black folks to agree that there is a such thing as racism, white supremacy, and that is what our primary issue is. Not gender, not economics, not education. No, the primary issue is because this is what they are clear on. This is what they unify on, and the voting should really illustrate that to us. The solidarity of whiteness should show within this voting demonstration that took place. This is not on any Black demographic. I don't care what demographic you fall on. I don't care if you voted, you didn't vote, whatever the case may be. I don't care I don't care if you did vote or you didn't vote, whether you're apathetic, whether you was anti-vote, whatever the case may be, you cannot place this at the feet of Black folks. If Hillary Rodham Clinton is a white woman and she gets more percentage-wise of a group that is extremely mistreated by her party to vote for her, that she has shown no loyalty to, and she only gets 52 to 53% of white women. No, she didn't even win. That is Trump numbers, and you still can't win the white woman vote. I think it's clear that, race, no pun intended, trumps all. This is not a gender issue. A lot of the confusion that Black people have, we tend to want to blame each other because it's easy. We do a lot of things to cause a lot of confusion. And I know that a lot of people don't think that there's time for empathy. But rest assured, we have a common enemy. And if you don't like to say that it's white people, you can say that it's whiteness. But just understand that whiteness is represented through people. There is no whiteness without white people, just like there is no racism without racist. People have to practice racism. And we have to be able to start to be honest. I follow the Welsing model. I am a student of Dr. Welsing. With the Blackburn Center, we went to the Crest Institute, Welsing Institute, on a regular basis. And as she would so eloquently say, this is not about hate. This is not about hating white people. Later for that. No name calling. I don't care about, calling them any kind of names. This it's not about that. That's not what we're on. We want to examine racism, white supremacy for what it is, and break code. And if there are other victims of racism that is willing to delve in deep into the code and to break it, then we are of like mind. We are not here to try to convert you into some kind of thinking that is going to be dogma. That's not our goal. And I'm hoping I'm not speaking out of turn here, guys. Let me know. But our thing is to follow the logic, as Mr. Fuller so frequently says. Don't follow anyone. Do your own thinking, do your own research, and then come to your own conclusions. But rest assured, we have a common enemy: whiteness, white people that practice racism, however you want to actually, detail it. But we have to move forward without trying to get into these identity politics. I don't care if it's LGBT, Black men, Black males, Black women, going anti-educational. This is the bourgeoisie against the thug, against the people that fall in the middle, which is what I would consider us to fall into. We're not neither the bourgeoisie, and we're not neither the so-called, thug or hard rock, wherever you want to call it. So it's hard to identify with people that fall out of these categories because you're not easily identifiable, especially if you're a Black male in the system. But no, that's a little bit of my thoughts about the gender divide. Did you guys have any comments on it?
I don't have anything on gender. I'm not making any comments on Black females. Just want to put that out there.
We have a call on the line.
What, 727?
Yeah, 727. Yeah.
You can unmute their line if you're willing to speak. If they want to speak, they can. That's fine. Be more than happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, this is Alex.
What's going on, buddy? How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Good evening to all you guys. And it's a pleasure once again joining you guys. I've been listening for a while. And, it's a beautiful show. And I want to commend you guys for, putting it together and your dedication.
Appreciate it.
I also, I like the website very well. But you guys are making strides, and I think this will go a long way in dealing with some of the social issues in America. But T asked me, informed me of the show tonight, and was gracious enough to give me a heads up on what the discussion, and I just want to share light on some of what we've already covered, particularly the elections. And my own, actually, one of the things he asked earlier when we had a brief discussion was that how are Africans, responding to the whole election. And I would say, I told him Africans are very disappointed in the result and very concerned by the fact that they feel that Trump, is racist, and at least based on some of his rhetoric. So they're very concerned. But personally, my own take on the elections, and I had a whole different view, even going to the elections, kind of predicted that Trump would win, just from my own unofficial polling. But I think it was a failure, in my opinion, of the leadership, the black leadership, and beginning with Barack Obama, going all the way down to the local church leaders and the political leaders and the actors and so forth. I think they have not galvanized or organized themselves as a people, and failure to do so, unfortunately, African Americans in this country will always have to shut in the stake because of the leaders' failure to organize or at least have an agenda as to what they want. And what I saw from the election was a mandate from white America, who felt that the country, or their country, quote unquote, was getting away from them, and they wanted someone who would first and foremost put their own interests before all else. That was what they wanted, and I think that was what Trump kind of, that was his rhetoric. That was what he wanted to hear, and that was the consensus among the white population, at least the rural white population, which I think makes a large part of the electorate. So equally so, when it comes to African American, unfortunately, it's as if one day we want to win the Grammys, or we're protesting that there's not enough blacks in the Grammys. Another day we are rioting because of police brutality. Another day we're organizing due to affirmative action. So it's like we don't have a clear narrative on where, or leadership on what is the goal, the stated objective in any election or at this time and place. I remember going back in the history and reading during the civil rights movement, at least it was about, blacks gaining the rights to vote and having other rights bestowed upon them. So that was done, and I think one of the speakers touched on it a whole lot during the Lyndon Johnson era and so forth, whatnot. But since then, there's been a disconnect between you know, the people and the leadership. So, for instance, I mean, Barack Obama is still the head of the Democratic Party, or was the head of the Democratic Party. He was the one that black people voted for overwhelmingly twice. He is the leader of the party, being the president, the standard bearer. And I didn't hear anything so convincing as far as what was the agenda for black people, economic, social, even the issues of, police brutality. Those are all issues afflicting the black community that was just swept under the carpet. Instead, people was not more like voting for what they want. They were voting against someone, meaning don't vote for Trump, not vote for these things. And I think that was the main issue, and still is one of the main issues in America. And I would, hold my comments for now. But thank you so much again for the opportunity and being a part of the show.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for sharing those thoughts. I have a quick question because I think that this can get to the crux of some of the comments that I made earlier. Do you mind me asking how long you've been here in stateside? This can kind
I don't mind. I've been in the States for 20 years.
Okay.
And yeah.
So as you've been here, do you think that there was a significant difference between just off your opinion? Do you think there's a significant difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump as far as their platforms when it comes down to racism and white supremacy? And as you said, there was no clear discussions about what they was going to do for black folks. It was just a lot of hot sauce in my bag with Hillary Rodham Clinton, putting out stars and saying that, just big up and that she's a woman. And then with Donald, I think that everybody wasn't really buying what he was saying. And you can see that with our vote. We didn't really vote for him. And even the black people that did vote for him, it was so minuscule that the percentages were so lopsided. We were the ones that voted for Hillary the most, which, begs the point that whoever shows the most loyalty, that should be the first person you thank, right? You didn't hear anything about her thanking the black women in particular that basically did everything within their power to get her in office, and was devastated. And I want to give it its due, but I just want to ask you, as someone that is a little bit on the outside looking in and kind of giving a fresh perspective on it, did you see a difference between the two?
Yes, I think the difference in this election was very clear. Trump had some very strong proposals, be it that those proposals wasn't welcome in liberal America, but he had some very distinguishing policy. One is Trump is an outsider as far as politics is concerned in this country, and that's a breath of fresh air. We've never had a situation where someone who's never held any public office to become standard bearer of a political party. I mean, at least in my research. So that's complete, different. Secondly, I mean, he was very clear, on things, whether it was NATO, not supporting NATO in Europe, which in itself makes sense. I mean, you have a $20 trillion deficit, and why will you be? And there's broken schools, and there's high unemployment in many cities in America and states. And you look at Detroit. Why would you be spending billions of dollars every year, defending Switzerland or Norway or Italy? So some of the things he said, they made sense. They make good sense. So at least those who sit and was not emotionally involved in this whole campaign. At one point, I even saw Barack Obama's brothers, or one of his brothers, supporting Trump.
Yeah,
Clearly.
I saw that too.
Okay. So and he gave good reasons. And he gave good reasons why. He talked about how that since Barack Obama became president, he's been a different person altogether. He's abandoned his people, who went out there to put him in a position. So yeah, there was a big difference. And as far as Hillary Clinton, on the one hand, this whole gender equality thing is hypocritical, because on the one hand, women don't want to be considered, any special privileges. They've come a long way in terms of getting equal. They want equal rights. They want to be treated as equal people. But then on the other hand, when it comes to being treated equally, they want special privileges. If you're going to enter a political race, then you can't use, being a female, or you can't use just the fact that someone says something, derogatory as your main policy. You kind of like playing the gender card, or, as people would say, the racial card. Defend yourself as a candidate and sell your policy, sell your economic policy. And Hillary Clinton, really, I can't think anyone here can really recall what Hillary Clinton's economic policy was or is. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so startled. Whereas, at least with Donald Trump, it was about bringing jobs back to America and competing strongly against foreign markets and foreign interests. That is as crystal clear as any campaign can be. So those are things that when I saw, early on, he clearly distinguished himself from not just from the Democratic Party, or not just from Hillary Clinton, but also from the Republicans and the politicians in Washington. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll keep his promise, and I don't think that that he would stand for what he campaigned against, unfortunately. But, that we'll have to wait and see. But he was clearly distinguishable.
Right on. Hey, thanks for sharing.
No problem. My pleasure.
DC, so much to say on that, huh?
Hey, I think there's a little static with your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but it seems to be a little bit of some distortion with it. Just to let you know, maybe it's queued up a little bit loud or whatever.
Still distorted?
Yeah, am I the only one hearing it, or?
No, it sounds like he has a bad connection, like perhaps some wires or something. That's what it sounds like to me. I don't think it's anything that he can solve now. But, I mean, when he's talking, I can hear him clearly. It's just that when he's unmuted, we do hear that what they call electronic noise.
Yeah, you good, but go ahead. What were you saying?
I said he said a lot of good things. So I do appreciate the discussion points for sure. Did you want to take a position on I have a bigger question to ask that should take up a little bit more time, but I'll hold that for a second. Did you have any thoughts just around, is there a difference? And outside of that, as far as the candidates are concerned, up and down the ballot, is there a difference in just showing a contrast, meaning in the system, clearly there is a difference playing the game itself versus the overall system, kind of looking at it at a 30,000 foot level view, and trying to make that make sense, meaning that, I'm going to vote because, I happen to live in a place where I vote for this person. I'm going to get benefits from it, or it's going to change something that's going to make someone less restrictive in their environment, etc. And so I can find things within the environment that I'm going to benefit from, or is going to help, some other person in a harder situation, versus having a discussion or elevating the discussion and looking at the overall system.
So are you asking if there was talking about like an overview?
Well, he said a lot of stuff. You can pretty much touch on whatever you want to touch on, as far as me asking you the question that you asked him. Right. As far as the particular candidates, and I was saying including all of them, from the Board of Education all the way up onto what they call the White House. But and then looking at it of the benefits, or maybe no benefits of not to get into W.E.B. Du Bois's comments, but discussing maybe the benefits, even if it's on a small scale, that you will get from participating because you're participating anyway. Just you going to buy gas, you're participating. So that's insanity, obviously, because you're always participating. But anyway, well, I guess you don't have to do anything. You can eat out of a dumpster if you wanted to. But my point is saying all that is, in the environment, can you find things, or are there things that are there that you can either benefit from personally, pothole in the street, or you can try to change, get someone kicked out, or change something to benefit, say, less time in more confinement, or changing something that's going to benefit, friends, neighbors, family members, etc., whatever those things might be. Or not, or whatever, right? So within the actual environment. So we're in the game and we're all playing the game. We're in it. It's a real thing. It's a living thing. It's life or death. So it's a real you know what I mean? It's not literally a video game. Obviously, it's real life that's happening here. But contrasting that maybe even against the overall system that's running and dominating things, it's trying to make that make sense. So when someone says white supremacy or racism and trying to sell it or pitch it as a global system, or as an idea, or a power structure that runs the planet, and that's your pitch, okay, I understand that. I somewhat understand what you're trying to say. At the same time, though, what I see every day is things like the word, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, these are the benefits, these are the pros and cons. You live in a particular district, you live in a particular state, etc. These are some of the things that you're going to either benefit from or not, because at the end of the day, again, we're in reality. People are working, people got hustle, they got businesses, they're trying to eat, they're trying to save money, they're living a real life, right? So how do you pull someone from that environment to get them to understand the larger scope here?
Well, real quickly to kind of go back to what I was saying at the beginning. We're not a monolith group. Blackness is a destination. People have different starting points. Whether you're from the Caribbean, whether you are a person of that is from the continent, that have a tribal connection to the continent, you know your tribal language, and you came to this country, and now you're defined under the label as Black. So you have a different perspective. So, you know, whether you are a person that is defined by your sexuality primarily, and you share that sexuality with those that are classified as white. I'm trying to make a larger point here. But you are still a person that's classified as Black also, that know that there is a such system as racism, but you have a certain perspective that is different. We don't all want the same things. And I think that when it comes down to one of the same things, we have a scattered view on how to attack this problem. So to answer your question as succinctly as possible, the main thing that I would tell anyone when they get into a discussion about racism and you're trying to share your perspective about what the system is to first, if you have any time, to get to know where that person's Blackness starts. And I really do mean that succinctly. All of us are not from the so-called hood. Some of us are from the hood. Some of us are from in-betweens. Like I said, we allow identity to define us, and we get in our corners. We see it all the time. You know, you have a lot of LGBT folks that partner up with white people and talk about oppression through that. But we know that there was no slavery of gay people. There was no systematic laws outside of the laws of, you know, I guess what you would call sodomy on the books that would jail someone for doing these acts. And one of the highest people, law officers of the land that practice racism, white supremacy. Some people say that he had said that he was passing is J. Edgar Hoover. And everybody know that he practiced same-sex relationships here in DC. But what I'm trying to say is we have to be a little bit more empathetic towards victims of racism, white supremacy. That's my position. And the reason why I say that is that there's so much confusion when we're dealing with each other that if we start off with angst and anger due to someone's identity and how they portray themselves, we won't be able to, you know, coalesce, try to solve this problem overall, because what it's going to take is the same thing that white people did, not to practice racism, but to practice neutralizing the system. And that to me is going to take a shared consciousness on a level. Not everybody doing the same things, I'm not saying that, but us having a shared understanding about what the system is and how it works. That at least needs to be primary. And you know, no name calling, you know, talking bad about people. And I know that there are a lot of us, and maybe some are even listening to us right now, that do a lot of you know, name calling, talking crazy, you know, bragging about what they got in this system. You know, there are plenty of victims that do that. Talk about their as Mr. Reed says often, butter biscuits, you know, getting benefits from the system, and then, you know, bragging about that in some kind of way to make another victim feel mad about what white people have given you. Just perpetrates the system in such a brutal way that we get into this mistreatment phase. And like I said, the ones that are mistreated the most suffer. And if we look at the raw numbers, and this can go globally, the ones that are generally shares the characteristics of people that are classified as Black suffer the most globally. So that should tell you entail what this system is here to do. But hopefully that give you a little clarity of what my position is on that. Do I think there's a difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton? Hell no. They're both racist. I stand on that. Hillary Clinton is a racist. Donald Trump is a racist. Like I said, I like my racists to sit in front of me. I like to know that you're opposing me. I did not like that Hillary Clinton caused confusion, especially between black males and black females. You know, there was plenty of black women that I knew that took this election personally. I mean, personal. And when you tell them the raw numbers, like, look, you know, the second demographic right after you guys, and she called us predators. That's my generation. When she spoke, she was speaking about people that was my age around that time. Oh, these are predators. They need to come to heal. And everybody on this line, I can attest, we know the people that fell victim to the system. Even Alex that's been here for 20 years, I'm pretty sure he knows people that's fall victim to this brutal system when it comes to mass incarceration. She is part of that. That's part of their legacy. That's what you're crying about. It's just, I don't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, Donald Trump is who he is. He's a racist. But Hillary Clinton is too. Bottom line.
Can I ask the caller a question that's from Africa, that's been here 20 years? I would like to ask him, what was the people in Africa that you may have heard of? You know, I don't know if you're still in touch with people there or not, but what was the general feeling when the United States invaded Libya and unleashed all them Arab terrorists upon the population? And we were getting reports, and even in Hillary's emails they got leaked, Sidney Blumenthal told her those militias were committing war crimes. And there are pictures all over YouTube and whatnot of mass graves with African bodies in them. So what, the caller, I believe his name was Alex, do Africans back on the continent ever even talk about that or consider that? That was Hillary Clinton. Now, remember, she was on the video and she said, we came, we saw, he died.
Well, thank you for the question, brother. First of all, I don't, most Africans identify with African Americans. We're one and the same. I think there's a big misconception that the views of Africans, you know, are different. I have happened to live on both continents. I constantly remain in touch with people in Africa politically and personally. So the view is the same. Most Africans, most Liberians, Ghanaians, and so forth, they were rooting for Hillary Clinton, and not because, like the brother said, overwhelmingly, the African American women, particularly, and men, was for Hillary Clinton. Despite all of these things we talked about concerning Libya, concerning Egypt, Syria, and all of these tragic events. And the problem, I think, is, and by the way, you know, I'm very empathetic towards the condition. And again, I would say, being an African person, I don't get any treatment or any. There's no difference between you and I when we walk down the street. If we got a stop up our cop, you know, they're not going to let me go because I'm African, or they're not going to be more lenient with me because I'm African.
Yeah, Alex, I didn't mean to imply, if I came across that way, that I was viewing Africans as something different than us.
No.
That's not what I was
Absolutely
implying.
not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to know.
Absolutely not. I think we're all on the same page. I just wanted to clarify that and just reinforce the point. But no, you didn't. Not in any way, form, or shape. So I just want to clarify that, the same way, yeah, there are different levels. Like Paradise said, there's different levels of people, different levels of intelligence, different levels of understanding of the social and political issues. So depending on where you are, there are some African Americans that are going to do well on a Trump, and exceedingly well. And there's some who done well over the last 8 years, and there are others who falling victim, whether to mass incarceration or through. So it just depends on where you are and what your view is in perspective. In other words, who you getting your news from. So if you're getting your news, of course, from CNN, and it's not easy, especially if you live in Africa, to be able to decipher the U.S. foreign policy and to get down to the nitty-gritty of it and find out who's responsible for the condition or white supremacy or all these different things. You won't be very prone to that kind of information or details unless you do extensive reading, like you read the new Jim Crow and all these material out there. And I see that same problem, within America when you talk about the African American women who voted for Hillary Clinton. If you ask them, for instance, where do they get the research from to know that, to understand the policies of Hillary Clinton, or to understand what damage it caused in terms of, the incarceration of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of black men. So the misinformation is tremendous. And so most people vote out of emotions, and they vote or they participate in a political process every 4 years. In between, they go to work and come home. They're not caught up, and with the issue. Most African Americans don't even know the percentage in the election. They don't even know the congressperson, who's the congressperson, or the political structure of America, the electoral college, and all those different things. And so is a lot of Africans as well. But what I would say is that I know this for a fact, that most Africans look to Americans for the cues, because most of the things that occurred in Africa, especially in my own home country, Liberia, which happens to be where the African Americans returned to Africa to establish a state. So we're very connected with the African American culture and politics and all of that. And we've felt our own brunt. We've fallen victim to racism and most of the policies of the United States in terms of trade, in terms of commerce, in terms of exploitation. Corporations, go to Africa and pillage the place, literally, take the resources. So we look to African Americans leadership to help us, because in most cases, the African countries are developing. Most African countries just got an independence in 1960. Almost all of Africa, besides Ethiopia and Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
So of the 50 of the one state, 49 of them just became a nation in between 1960 and 60. So the infant nation, and then after that, there was still a lot of control, European control, white supremacy, and still is, in terms of the whole economic structure, the political structure. I think you know about Congo with Mobutu Sese Seko, this despot that was handpicked by the CIA. You know about Lumumba, about Thomas Sankara, and a number of leaders going all the way to Gaddafi. Gaddafi, in my view, was one of the best presidents in Africa in terms of development, in terms of, progress. In fact, I remember a time when Gaddafi visited Liberia and he built infrastructure. He gave loans and at very, very modest terms and so forth. So he was more of a Pan-Africanism. And because of that, so we all fall victim to the same system. agree with my brothers who know that yes, there's a strong supremacist ideology that is affecting blacks in this country as well as Africans and black people around the world. And so it's a serious matter, and that's why going forward, we need to be conscientized and to find a better way, because the current way political structure and going every 4 years to vote for someone who in most cases, both choices are going to be detrimental. It's just a question of the extent. To look for ways in which that African Americans and black people can find a way out of this disaster, this carnage, so to speak.
We appreciate that response, Alex. You're definitely going to help me move into my next point based off what you just summarized. Mr. Reed, and we appreciate the comments too, Alex. Mr. Reed, how much time do we have left?
You got about 14 minutes.
All right. Question is for T or DC, but do y'all have anything before I ask this question?
Nope. Go ahead.
To comment. Okay. Well, I was thinking to myself, what do we have? Is there any information, material, or any understanding on what it looks like if you start to dismantle a democracy? If you start to look at the environment as far as the major structure and using the common words, not necessarily racism, white supremacy, but instead attacking the exact thing that we're calling it, right? A republic or a democracy. How does that become dismantled? Or what is just some thoughts? We can have this conversation over the next 500 years, of course, but what are some of the thoughts that you guys might have when I state that question? What is the first things you're thinking when I say the democracy itself needs to be dismantled?
So I'm sorry. The question is, as far as what does that look like when a democracy is dismantled?
Right. What are some thoughts around dismantling it? Bringing it to an end, because we can have a lot of different type of conversations about hanging out every day, but as far as getting down to the brass tacks, as far as ending something, I'm talking about, so I'm clear on the record that what does it look like ending democracy? Bringing down government systems. I'll put it that way. Things that have been put into place. They call it democracy. They call it, communism, et cetera, et cetera. What are the requirements to either take that power, right? So not from a codified perspective, but just, do you look at it? Will people views be, do you take the power? So we know there's power in place. For example, you take Kemet, for example, and say, well, the Greeks or the Romans, they go in there and they now become those people, right? We're going to take the power. We're going to now be in charge of whatever this was. We're going to overtake this, and now we're in charge of it. Does that make sense?
No, I got it. I think that, to be honest, I don't think people can envision anything outside of this. So, this is, to me, I don't think this is a democracy that in this country. I think it's a mix of different things, anywhere from socialism to communism to oligarchy, aristocracy. It's just like, to me, it's a hodgepodge of things.
Monarchy.
Anytime you can take money from, your so-called citizen and give it to corporations, to prop them up, then you're not into quote unquote democracy.
Let me be before you finish it. Let me I don't want to stay on that definition too long. What I'm saying is that this is what it's called. I don't believe in any of it. But when I say the word the United States of America, or I say Europe, or I say democracy or communism, the thoughts automatically come into your mind about what I'm talking about, right? A group of white people that pretty much are in charge of everything. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't really don't want to be caught up too much into the minutia of it. More so of talking about the dismantling of whatever you want to put, whatever tag you want to put on it. Because if we're just talking, it's just words at the end of the day. Does that make sense?
I was getting to that actually. What I was leading into is that because it's such a up in the air term when people think about it, I don't think people can think of what a governmental structure would look like outside of a quote unquote democracy. You see what I'm saying? So, in other words, people have been so deluded and disenfranchised and so forced into the system that I don't think most people can see outside of that. So they say, they can say, well, you don't have to live under this oppression, but at least it's better than, and they'll find some other so quote unquote third world country to compare it to and say, well, at least I'm not, here, North Korea, for example. And so that is the low hanging fruit. That's the cognitive dissonance. And so people take that carrot on the stick and run with it. So that's my answer to your question, is that I don't think people can see outside of, I don't think people can see dismantling this democracy. But I think if it did actually happen, you would have anarchy until something else comes in and replaces it, whatever that would be. I don't know if that answers your question or.
I mean, I think that's a start. Just you trying to kind of say that. No, I understand what you're saying. I didn't mean to cut into what you were saying, but just that you don't think people in general could even conceive of what it looks like to put an end to this environment, right? You can't really process it because of how the environment entraps you into, starting a business or traveling the world or whatever the hell you're doing, hanging out in the streets, whatever it may be. Instead of saying, well, because we have examples of what it could potentially look like on the planet if there was a overthrowing a coup or whatever language you want to put around it, just saying that whatever this is, because we know what democracy is. Democracy is racism, white supremacy. Democracy equals empire. That's why I don't really care about words. I'm more concerned about there's people in charge. How do I take that power away from them? And can people conceive of what that looks like? If you thought about what it looks like you said, you would connect it to, Libya. Well, they showed me some images of Aleppo, and damn, that's the transition point, because to take power requires a tremendous amount of violence, I believe. And the larger the power, the more destruction needs to happen, and then at that point you can start to rebuild from there. But I'll go ahead, DC.
Yeah, let me just say.
Okay.
No, go ahead, T. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, definitely violence and force, but I think in the case of, like, you take Syria, which they've been trying to topple Assad for 3-4 years now, maybe more.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant not Libya, but I meant Syria, by the way. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, well, either one. I mean, the U.S. backed a so-called moderate rebel, whatever that is, and so in other words, they created an ideology within these countries to then move forward and finance these folks in other words, they presented to these folks, which I'm assuming they probably said, well, they probably went to some of the most oppressed among them and said, well, aren't you tired of what, Assad is doing or what Gaddafi's doing to your people? You're being marginalized. So, hey, you know what? We're gonna provide you with small arms, weapons in order for you to overthrow, because we know you're fed up, and so we're gonna take that ideology, that rebellion, and fuel it toward our own interests. So I think it starts with a scouting process and mapping out psychologies and people who will fit in with the ideology that's going to, implement your particular strategy. And then the violence happens after that. But first, there's a scouting process and a vetting process, and without that, particular scouting strategy, it becomes a little more difficult because you have a whole bunch of different warring factions without any particular aim. But once you can galvanize that, it's like it's in Morals and Dogma, the book, where it talks about how the masses are basically a tool to be applied to whatever purposes the larger power structure has in mind. So, I think I'm answering your question, but not sure.
No, you are. I just want to start to kind of dig into that vein as we go forward. Maybe we can do a full thing on it next week, in a couple of weeks. But just want to put that out there. You can also reach us at code_breakers1865 on Instagram. You can email us at codebreakers1999@gmail.com, and you can tweet us on codebreakers191. You can always find us on blacktalkradionetwork.com. DC, if you want to get your 2 cents in.
Yeah, I'm glad that I waited to hear T's response, because that's going to kind of color mine and what the damage that has happened to us is now that English is the universal language of commerce. Our solutions is draped in white supremacy. Let me repeat, our solutions to this problem that we call racism, white supremacy, is part of the problem also. And let me explain. A lot of the things that we need to do to combat this system in the way that we understand it is going to take a lot of, like you already said, a lot of violence, a lot of killing. People say that economics is part of it, and anybody that's dealing with economics or capital, you have to mistreat folks, bottom line, even if it's your own people. If you want to bring up Asia, if you want to bring up India, if you want to bring up any of these other countries that people like to bring up, please look at the demographics and look at the squalor and the desolate living conditions of the people that are the poorest among them. I'm not talking about Shah and Sunset or the people that you see over here. There's a very small population of minority folks that's from those countries that come over here and throw money in the air, and you thinking that is all good for this small group of people that come over here and capitalize in the system of racism, white supremacy. It is a devastating system that brutally destroys any kind of justice model that you try to build up. Even me just thinking about it right now makes it very, very difficult to see a way out of it without extreme mistreatment of people, regardless of whatever it may be, because this is what they had to do to get a system like this. Everybody wasn't speaking the same language. Let me repeat that. Everybody on this earth that lived free, ate food, clothed themselves, had their own culture, did not live like the European. But now, 2016, or so we've been told, per the European, people is classified as whiteness. We have accepted through violence and through mental manipulation this model of living globally, and the way we come to understand so-called race, mental state, who deserves proper treatment, who don't. Even the way we talk about mistreatment now, we try to look for perfect victims. Either you're wrong or you're right. It should just be real clear to everyone what's going on here. But we all talk English. We all speak in English right now on this line. We know that if we trace our bloodline back, that is not the language that we originally spoke. Whether you are native to this landmass, if you're a native person, that is so-called classified as black that was here before the Africans came to this continent, or where did you come from the motherland? And as my brother Alex can attest, we all do not view it the same way. We should not be in this trap of trying to give whiteness cover. We need to just call it out. Maybe this is just, at this moment, that's what we need to do, because that's all we can do at this moment. I think that the solution is so beyond, is something else. It's going to be something else. I don't know what it's going to be called, but I don't think that any solutions come from following the model of mistreatment of other people, and especially the ones that can do it the best, which is white people. And I know that is not what a lot of people like to hear, but I mean, just think about some of the solutions that you think about and that you talk about on a regular basis, and think about the frustration you feel, and think about who you're going to start blaming when you feel those frustrations. I guarantee it's going to be other victims of racism. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
All right, I know we're getting close to the end of the program. Did did you have any final thoughts?
No, DC, you made a lot of great points, and really not much that I can add on. Obviously, we could go for, well, like you said, we could go on and on about the topic, and it's very interesting to talk about. And I think it's very important to study the system of racism, white supremacy, and get clear on it first, because it's based on deception and subterfuge. And so if you don't have that initial understanding that it's a warfare-based system, intel gathering, then you will be lost.
All right. Yeah, I mean, everything went pretty good. I think we're in a good space to move forward. You can hear us on the first and third Tuesdays of every month. We will be running right through the holidays. DC, I'm sure you'll discuss that in another couple of weeks. We can, touch on that as well, I'm sure. I definitely want to keep pushing the dismantling of democracy equaling racism, white supremacy, in my personal opinion. And I think we'll come up. I think we probably have a few other topics coming up in the next 2 weeks that we can definitely discuss. Mr. Reed, are we almost at the end here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We can go ahead and pretty much close out, I believe. This is the Code Breakers. This is Paradox.
This is D. Until next time, peace.